So welcome to the stream, guys. Um, yeah, it's been continuously interesting couple of weeks. I mean, to be fair, April was a really good month for Bitcoin. We saw this really nice upside momentum. We obviously broke out of this trend line that we have been watching since January. So broke out of that trend line, and obviously we've just been kind of continuing upwards. Haven't really, I wouldn't say really slowed down too much. Obviously, 94, 95K was heavy resistance. We have broken through that. But next levels of resistance are around here between borderline 100K and 98, 97,500. Um, I know I said this last time. I'd like to think that we are possibly slowing down a little bit in terms of the upward momentum. Um, you know, like we are seeing obviously bearish divergence on the 4 hour time frame. So, we can see obviously that it's getting weaker and weaker, but we're pushing higher and higher. We take a look at it on the daily now. I think I mentioned to you guys a long time ago, the oversold RSI is one of the best and most accurate indicators for Bitcoin. So if you ever see an oversold indicator pop up like we did down here, where the RSI was below 30, this is your oversold region down here. Yeah, it's not indicative of this is the absolute bottom, but it is indicative that, we are close. We are very, very close. So, um, it pretty much works every time. Like, this was pretty much the zone. I had a zone down here that I was genuinely hoping that we would get to. We didn't. Or at least we haven't yet. I mean, look, you can't necessarily rule it out, right? Because the real test on Bitcoin is when we break down from this trend line here. Like we break out of it to the downside. And yeah, the real test is obviously going to be, do we hold a higher low? There's, I wouldn't say there's too much uh, volume here, really. I mean, I am looking for the pullback to come down to around, at the bare minimum, 89K. I think we will see 89K in the next 3-4 weeks tops. I do think that the local top is near. Um, you know, I kind of thought that when we were around 95, 96K, to be honest. We're still pushing a little bit higher. Realistically, we could go to around 100K, but I don't think we would push too much higher than that. Probably wouldn't be healthy for Bitcoin to push higher than that, if I'm honest, because it would just be too much of an extension. We need a pullback to obviously test the fact that we will have a higher low and then obviously continue upwards. This Fibonacci region here was one that I took from this low here to high to low. And typically for this kind of upwards extension, we would really see it. I wouldn't want to see it push more than the 200% extension, which is around 99,500. If we also took a fib from that previous high, previous low, yeah, I mean, look, there is obviously some confluence around the $102,000 level, right? We've got the 238.2 retracement for this extension, and on the higher time frame, we've also got that 78.6. I mean, above that, it's kind of like I think we'll just continue up and up and up. Which again, I personally wouldn't really think is a good thing. Because, the higher we go in this respect, the bigger we're going to kind of crash down. Um, we need to kind of test the strength of Bitcoin on that pullback, for that high low. Now, we've also got some confluence down here. If we do obviously begin a pullback at some point, maybe next week, and the first kind of area of interest is definitely going to be this 89 to 88K region. Okay, so I do think we're gonna, if we obviously just kind of get this pullback, I think we can obviously expect a bounce at that point. So remember though, what we're looking for is we're obviously looking for a three-wave move down. So on the higher time frame, we're looking for possibly something like that. And then I would like to see this higher low held, okay? It could be a much larger correction. And we could still realistically go all the way down to, 81K. I mean, it wouldn't be the end of the world. It would be very deep though. It would be very deep. And to be honest, I would say that if we break below, this region and sustain a break below it, then personally, I think we would be going lower. Okay. At that point, I wouldn't even think that 75K would hold. I would suspect that we would just go straight into the kind of 69K area. It's not likely. Okay, it's not likely now that we've seen this kind of breakout of the trend line and this upside continuation, and we've reached some pretty good Fibonacci levels here. I wouldn't say it's likely that we go back all the way down and break that low, but nonetheless, obviously Bitcoin needs to have a pullback, right? It needs to have a pullback. It needs to have a retest, and we need to obviously see, if it holds that higher low. Obviously, when Bitcoin has had its kind of sideways consolidation moments around here, this gives a chance for obviously altcoins to breathe a little bit, right? Because, happy Bitcoin, but not too pumpy Bitcoin equals alts able to obviously move and make some nice upside extensions, right? So, this is kind of obviously what we're looking for. This will obviously help altcoins push higher. What obviously will help Bitcoin and altcoins is obviously USDT dominance going down. So we can see it's just kind of dancing around this 5% or 50% fib retracement area, right? So it's just dancing around here. Now, if we take, let's see if we can do a trend line. Yeah, I mean, all I can say at the moment is that USDT dominance has obviously broken this trend line. We had previously around 2 taps here, 1 tap here, and then obviously broke through, retest, couldn't get over, tried to get a little bit higher, failed again. So, I mean, I guess it's gonna depend at this point. Like, is USDT dominance gonna hold this level? Because if it does hold this level, we could potentially see a corrective move from USDT dominance, back to maybe here, like 5.4%, and we have a retest of this zone. Okay, that is a possibility. That is where obviously Bitcoin will potentially have a pullback, and you will see altcoins have a pullback as well. But we have broken this trend line, and this was a relatively major trend line. You can argue maybe this is a deviation. I mean, if it is a deviation, then we would obviously see USDT dominance get back over this trend line, right? But there isn't any evidence of that. There's no evidence that that is happening. So I would remain bullish. Um, I'm bullish with Bitcoin over 84,000, $85,000. I mean, I will remain bullish. When it starts to, if it starts to break under that level, that is when I would obviously start to be concerned. Okay. Um, yeah, I don't want to see Bitcoin breaking under that level. I showed you there's Fibonacci levels that we need to watch. Um, and these are kind of the rules, right? I mean, let's be perfectly honest. Complete invalidation of upside momentum is obviously going to be the break below the previous major swing low, which was here at 74,500. But that's a very long way away, to be honest. Um, I mean, I wouldn't even say that that is like. I mean, if we broke under that, for me, that may potentially be either a reset, okay? Um, so if we ended up doing something crazy, I mean, obviously this is not going to look like that, but just assume that we get like a move down, and we ended up breaking below that 75K, 74.5K level. That just means that the bull market will take longer. We've got a potential reset. We have to find support here, and then eventually we make our way up again. Okay? It's not bearish, but I wouldn't say it's super bullish, to be honest. Um, as I said, I really wouldn't want to see Bitcoin go that low. I wouldn't want to see Bitcoin even lose. You see this area of consolidation for Bitcoin, and we had these lows here at around 80, say 84,000, okay, 83,500. I wouldn't want to see Bitcoin even go below this level. So, um, so we got two areas here for Bitcoin. When we pull back, because we will pull back, nothing goes up in a straight line. I could be wrong though. Maybe some like massive whale's gonna come in and just like pump it to 140K, and that's the bull run over. But I don't see it happening yet. Um, but yeah, obviously when we have this pullback, first area to watch is definitely the 88,000, 89,000 area. I do expect a bounce, but it could just be a larger three-wave move, where we just go to that level, bounce, and then test this region here. Maybe not even go that deep, to be honest, but test that region there, and then we obviously hold that higher low and go higher. But this is the region I'm looking at for Bitcoin on the pullback. And I mean, we can see kind of how long it's taken for instance, this like wave two. This took about 2 weeks. If we do get a pullback, we can expect possibly that this wave four pullback is going to take a couple of weeks. 2 to 3 weeks. We might be consolidating in this zone, battling in this zone, and then the bears might just give up and say sod it, and that's it. We're away. So yeah, that is pretty much my analysis on Bitcoin. I do think we are very much due for a pullback. We might not get it until 9900K. But we are due for a pullback. And, don't be surprised if we see a pullback, because nothing goes up in a straight line forever. We are due a pullback, and these are the areas to watch. Even if we break this trend line, by the way, first kind of main confirmation for me that we are actually having a pullback would be a sustained break below this level, like candle closes below, 4-hour candle closes below this level here, like I would say 93.5K. You could also say like below the wicks, so we're talking under 92,700. I would say anything below this level, you know, very, very likely we are going to experience a pullback. Um, and when I say pullback, I mean a pullback into this area here. If you want even not as confident confirmation, but some confirmation, you could maybe say that, if we break below this level here, but I mean, there's quite a few swing lows here. I mean, I would probably take this level as a bit more concrete proof that we have started our pullback. So yeah, that's pretty much it on Bitcoin. I've talked about USDT. Um, so the only signals I have open at the moment right now are the Bitcoin short. Um, Obviously we're like way above my average, but it is what it is. It's not a huge position. Remember, this is, I think it was like 2-3%, whatever it was. It's not huge. I've obviously been like scaling out, scaling in. Just trying to catch the top. Not always possible. But if no one is in a Bitcoin short at the moment, which I wouldn't be surprised if people aren't. But a good time might be, I mean, look, we reached the 1.786% fib level. That was a good time to short. I think my DCA was around here as well, actually. So this was a good time to possibly scale into a short, and then obviously got the 9900 2K region to obviously scale in further into that short. Yeah, I mean, like if you're doing like a proper swing short, yeah, I mean, invalidation point is gonna have to be around the 106, 107,000 K region. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much when you'd close, right? Like you wouldn't really want to hold it uh longer than that. I certainly will probably close if we start having daily candles close above 99,500. This is kind of like, this is kind of like my area where I'm like, okay, you know, we might get the pullback, but you know, it's it might be better to possibly re-enter slightly higher up. Um, we don't want to be in too much of a deficit with that trade. On the plus side, Link was doing really, really well. I hope some of you kind of got in on that signal. I think my average was like it's like 14.08. We trimmed a couple of times. But yeah, it was when we had this really nice pullback down here, right? So I think my entry was around here. We had a slightly higher up entry, and then we had the DCA, so the average came to around here. Well, let's be conservative. It was around here. So this is like a really good entry here, to be honest. And we had a decent move upwards. Like a what was it, like a 6.5% unleveraged move. So that was pretty nice. I do think Link is still going to continue to go up, but obviously we have to break out of this kind of triangle. It's not really a triangle anymore. I probably shouldn't say that. We kind of broke below this B wave, which I was watching. It's not really a valid triangle anymore, but it looks like we're in some kind of consolidation zone. If we start breaking below that previous wick, remember we've got stops to entry, guys. So, for me, if we come back down to this level, that's it. It'll stop me out. But yeah, obviously, if we start breaking below on the smaller time frame, this golden pocket region, that's the 61.8% retracement area at $13.8. That would be an indication that we will probably see a little bit lower on Link. We've got a lot of confluence at the $13.4 region. And then next major areas we have is like the $12.8 region. Wouldn't really want to see it go too much lower than that. I mean, obviously on the higher time frame, we've got the 61.8% fib retracement area here at $12, almost $12. Um, yeah, I mean, I would want to see, I would want to see it hold that. I would not want to see Link break below this low here. Um, Again, I think similar with Bitcoin. If we broke below this low, for instance, I think we're at the very least going to test the $10 region again, but I don't know if it will hold or not. Um, sorry, talking too much. Sorry. Um, yeah, so what else? Um, let's have a look at Sui. Try not to talk too much. Um, yeah, so Sui's just consolidating at the moment. It's just consolidating. Consolidating on the resistance. So, yeah, resistance obviously we've got at around $4. I did have a short here. I cancelled it. Purely on the basis that there is a chance that after this consolidation, Sui pushes higher. We obviously have some resistance here. This is probably major resistance, I would say, at $4.2. So I might possibly look at creating a short again, but I would want to see obviously what the reaction is to $4. And if we push higher than that, $4.2. So yeah, not much to say on Sui. I mean, Sui has obviously been performing really, really well. We had this falling wedge, and normally with falling wedges we get like a substantial impulsive breakout, which is what we see. So we had this impulsive breakout on the 22nd of April. Obviously just like sent, complete send. I think it's just like broken so many like fib levels. Might not even be. Let's see. Okay, so it stopped in its tracks at the 2.618 fib level, which is, to be honest, it's pretty much maxed out. We could see further upside from Sui, but yeah, it's looking similar to Bitcoin. I would I would definitely say that we are due for a pullback. Um, Link, obviously, I wanted Link to go higher, right? But again, it's kind of like we might just be starting to get that pullback. Um, but I mean, you can argue that maybe Sui's looking a bit like a bull flag. I mean, it's kind of pushing it a bit to say it is, but I think if we start breaking below that previous low, um, you know, there might be evidence that we would see a pullback. I would say that Sui could possibly pull back to the region of $3, possibly even $2.54. Um, I would want to see it hold that level. Again, definitely wouldn't want to see it break below this level. So yeah, I mean, you know, I gotta say we just have to see how the weekend goes, because are we just gonna have sideways consolidation on the weekend, or are we gonna get a complete dump? A lot of the time you don't know on a weekend because weekends can be crazy and hectic. So yeah, but Sui's definitely looking good. If Sui came down to those regions again, the $3, $2.50 region, yeah, this is definitely a buy zone here. It's a good buy zone. I mean, I would be looking at possibly even buying spot on Sui. And I think Sui can really perform. I mean, it's been one of the strongest coins this year. Um, and they've just come out like super on top. And if we happen to hold that $1.76 region that was basically our low on the 10th of April, then we could possibly look at upside targets like, and let me just put them on so they look a little bit more realistic. There you go. Right, okay. So yeah, I mean, if it holds this low, we could possibly go, um, you know, a lot higher. We can reach an all-time high on SUI, get to like the 8.67, 9.84 dollar region. Just make sure I've drawn this as accurately as possible. Um, yeah, I mean, I would say, yeah, that's close enough, really. So yeah, I mean, you know, $10 SUI, is it possible? Yeah, sure, why not, right? I mean, that's pretty much a 3x from here. It's not huge, not on spot, but I mean, on leverage, that's pretty decent, right? If you enter the leverage position here and you wanted to obviously hold it for like a relatively long swing trade, I mean, it probably would be a long swing trade because I mean, if we look at this, I mean, I see all of this as a larger, um, like if I show you how I see this possibly playing out. So, uh, I've probably drawn this wrong, haven't I? Yes, I've drawn this wrong. Why did I start from there? Hang on 1 second. Sorry. Yeah. So wave one, wave two, and then obviously the wave three, which is one of the longest waves and normally the most profitable waves. And then we've got our wave four, which is normally around the similar length to the wave two, which kind of, yeah. I mean, we can argue that. And then the wave five sometimes um, is not as long as the wave three, but it could be as long as wave three, right? So, I mean, $10 is definitely a possibility for Sui. Um, Bear in mind though that after the third wave, it's sometimes very common, in fact, more common than not, for it to fail. So what you would typically see is that it can never achieve, at the very least, a daily candle close, a few daily candle closes above the wave three high. So, you might see that we get a push up, like for instance, we get like a pullback and then a push up, but then we can't get over that previous high, and then this just ends up being a failure, and we enter a bear market, right? That's the bearish side, okay? Remember, there's always a bullish and a bearish side. Like, there's never just pure bullish. Um, I mean, you can sometimes get super bullish and bullish, but this I would say is like the bearish side of it, the not so bullish side. I mean, it's still pretty decent though, right? I mean, if we get a pullback to $2.50 and we go to the previous all-time high of around $5.50, I mean, that's still a 2x, right? Like, you can't really say, oh my God, it was like super bearish. It's not bearish, right? Bearish is if you entered now and it just went down like 5x, that's bearish, okay? Um, like that's what happened in the bear market, right? When, Link went from $50 to $5 and Bitcoin went from like $69,000 to like $15,000, right? That's bearish. But we don't have that at the moment. Okay, there are certain levels that need to break in order for me to say, okay, I don't think we're getting a bull market, or at least I don't think we're getting that final fifth wave that a lot of tokens are looking like they have, or they're working on at the moment, and that this is the final leg up. Same with Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin, I think, if we get that final leg up, if we get that pullback and we hold that higher low and we push upwards, I do think we get to around $130,000, $140,000 Bitcoin. That for me is my top. That for me is where I think, okay, any tokens I'm holding, anything I'm holding, um, you know, maybe we would get some sideways on Bitcoin that will then obviously allow altcoins to do a final push up. But at that point, I think, people, not financial advice, but people should really start thinking about selling because, you know, fib levels, market sentiment, etc. I think that'll be kind of when people are like, okay, cool, this is it, pack your bags, go home, bear market time, and we obviously have that accumulation period, right? Um, and maybe this bear market is going to be longer than the previous one. I hope not, but it might be. But I mean, it's kind of good for us, right? Because it gives us time to accumulate more. of our favorite coins at super cheap prices, right? I mean, like if Link, for instance, goes to $50 in the next couple of months, which is possibly likely, right? I see that happening. People who bought at $5, $6. I mean, that's a 10x, right? I mean, it's better than nothing. I mean, you got obviously the degens who are like, oh my God, we need like 1,000x and let's just, trade Solana meme coins and go crazy. But, you know, for people who want to invest like $10,000 or something and, want a 10x out of it, that's 100 grand. Like, yeah, sure, taxes and stuff like that. Let's not have to calculate that. But, I mean, that's still a good return on investment, right? I mean, like you can't really buy a house nowadays and in like a year or two get like 10x for it, or like any savings account or anything like that. Um, Maybe you'd have better luck going to the casino, which I do not recommend doing, by the way. So yeah, like we're in a really good position right now. Even though yeah, if you've not been invested since we had $5 Link, since we had $9 Solana, since we had $15,000 Bitcoin, not the end of the world. I mean, Bitcoin, I think, yeah, like it's a bit late. I ain't gonna lie, it's a bit late. Um, you know, if you buy on the pullback around 88K and we speculate that it's going to around 130, 140K, yeah, you almost get a 2x. Fine. On Bitcoin, not bad. But the ship has kind of sailed with that one a little bit. I know I haven't talked about Ethereum the entire time because I find Ethereum entirely boring. Um, but it's moved. Like someone's basically got a stick and prodded it, which is awesome. Um, so that's always good. Um, and I mean, I'm not gonna knock it. It's kind of above the 50 the 50 area of the RSI. Um, Again, I mean, look at Ethereum, right? We had a daily um, oversold indicator here. We had a daily oversold indicator on Ethereum. Look what happened to Ethereum, right? When we had that daily oversold indicator, we basically flew like, 100%, right? Um, Basically just literally did a 2x. Beautiful. Same thing here, right? We had the daily RSI oversold. I mean, even here you can look at it, right? Daily RSI oversold. We I wouldn't even say we made like barely a new low, a lower low. Again, as I said, it's not telling you that this is the final low, but it's indicative that we are very, very close. And what, Ethereum was 1,500, boom, like went to 4,000, right? So you know, the daily oversold RSI is a good indicator to tell you like, right, this is probably a good time to buy. I don't personally use the RSI for anything else because it's not that reliable, especially on like lower time frames. Like for me, I used to use the stochastic RSI, but I kind of went away from using them at all. Um, but for actual oversold indicator on a daily, yeah, I mean it's pretty golden to be honest. Um, so yeah, I mean we can see that Ethereum is obviously trying to push up, which that's good. That's good for altcoins. Um, it's kind of what we want to see. Against Bitcoin, like BTC to ETH still looks like trash. I think it's looked like trash forever, or for a very long time at least. Bitcoin has been outperforming ETH. I've said it 1,000 times. I'm not going to bore you and say it again. But I think we need to start seeing ETH pick up, right? Because ETH has looked, relatively weak. It's been relatively weak. I mean, if you look at this chart, right, we have this trend line. Um, let's be fair. Let's be fair. Okay. We'll take a slightly different trend line at this a similar point of when Bitcoin um Bitcoin made its high. Actually, you know what? Let me just double check something because I'm pretty sure. Yeah, okay, fine. So that was on the 20th of January, right? If we look at ETH, yeah, okay. I mean, I'll just draw it here. I don't particularly like this, but whatever. Um, but you can see, yeah, like, we I mean, to be honest, I really don't like this trend line at all, but whatever. Um, so yeah, if we take a trend line from here, although I personally don't like it, this trend line here is much more representative. But for the sake of argument, we can take a trend line here because, we've got a touch point broke through it. So, I mean, the expectation for me at the very least is to see Ethereum go to at least, let's have a look. Let's calculate this sensibly. Yeah. So, I mean, bang on the money. I mean, I would like to see Ethereum get to this 1,966 level. Okay. Um, that might be kind of the trigger whilst Bitcoin's kind of cooling off a little bit. That might allow Ethereum to kind of, you know, get its ass moving a bit and get to this level, which would obviously help alts and send them higher. And yeah, I mean, you know, I do think we'll reject this level initially. So, what we might see happen with Ethereum is that we do obviously go higher, we get to that area. So we get here. Sorry, that was really badly drawn. So we get here, and then we have our pullback, and then we need to either hold a higher low here or a higher low here. Um, we could go lower. I think I've kind of given you a good idea of like what are the levels to watch. Really, you don't want to be going lower than the 50% borderline, the golden pocket area. That's kind of like your last resort, right? If we get a pullback on Ethereum, and this is a moving chart, right? So as Ethereum goes higher, I will have to adjust this. So if obviously Ethereum went all the way here, I would adjust this so that, yeah, okay, I wouldn't want to see it break below 1,676. Borderline like lowest possible for me would be 1,600, right? But this is a moving fib zone because obviously price is moving, so we have to move with the price. At the moment though, if we keep it like this and Ethereum doesn't push higher, then number one, weak, because I'd like to see it get to 1,968. Number two, it's got to hold if we get a pullback and we start like retesting this area here. You can obviously see that, there's quite a fair bit of volume around this area here. So if we do get a pullback, I do expect Ethereum to hold this region. If it doesn't and it starts breaking below and breaks below that previous wick, which is at like 1537, so if we start breaking below here and we don't recover, then I would say, sorry guys, Ethereum is going to go lower. It's not going to hold the 1,300 level, that's for sure. And I've drawn this on as a higher time frame. So, we had this really nice kind of upward trend line. I got concerned about Ethereum when it broke it in February. It broke that trend line and it really concerned me, okay? Now, I mean, at the very least, we might see obviously possibly Ethereum push up a bit more, as I said, to the 2,000 area. We get a pullback, hold the higher low, and then push higher. But I mean, this doesn't, it's just, to be honest, it just doesn't look good. If anything, what it looks like is possibly a triangle playing out. So we have like this kind of A, B, C, D, E structure here, possibly playing out. And, I mean, that could send us down to 1,190, 1,200 levels, right? I mean, it's not completely out of the picture. The ETH Foundation might get liquidated because I think their average is like 1,120 or something like that. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to be bearish. We'll see what ETH does. We'll see if ETH obviously tries to push higher. Good ETH means good altcoins, although, again, I think a lot of altcoins are just saying that they don't really give a toss about ETH at the moment. But yeah, unfortunately, I have run out of time. and I am sorry for being late, but I hope that was enough information. I think we've pretty much got like the main information here that we need. Keeping an eye on Bitcoin, seeing if we get rejection at this point, seeing if we do break that trend line, because number one, that will be the first indicator that we might have topped. Second indicator is obviously if we break below 92,800, that would be the much bigger indicator that would give me more confidence to say, yes, we will drop down to this region. And then once we get to that region, it is going to be a question of, do we hold that level and do we hold the high low? So yeah, thank you for joining, guys. I am genuinely sorry that I literally have not seen any of the comments at all. Oh, okay. You know what? Okay, fine. Just because I like this dude, I'm gonna check render really quickly. But I do need to go. But I'll really quickly check render. I think I was looking at render like ages ago. Oh my God, you know what? I literally was gonna buy it when it was like $2.3. And did it even get to that? No, it didn't. Yeah, you know what? This was thing is my buy zone on everything was ever so slightly lower than like where everything actually got to. This was like a truncation right here. I was expecting this to be an A, B, C, and the C wave would literally go down a little bit lower to this region, and it hasn't happened. Anywho, yeah, I mean, again, render's looking pretty good. I mean, you know, we have got this resistance here that is trying to break, which again is a good sign. Okay. So, you know, as I said, I think this is going to be kind of like we might flip this and, you know, go up a little bit further, or at the very least, we might flip this and possibly go up. So render does look pretty good at the moment. This all depends on Ethereum really and Bitcoin, because if Bitcoin decides to massively just tank and dump, we're just going to reject from here. We're just going to reject from here. We can also take a trend line. Yeah, that's good. That's good. So yeah, you can see that, you know, we may push higher, right? We may push at the very least. Let us do some very, very quick fibs. Yeah, I mean, risque. We're kind of at resistance. Next level of resistance is at $5.2. I'd be very careful if render gets to $5.2, somewhere around here, basically. This is a region where we will possibly expect a pullback. And yeah, in terms of obviously the pullback, again, you're looking at maybe around the $3.7 region. Wouldn't really want to see it, but possibly the $3.4 region. Okay. You know, this is where everyone is gonna wanna get in, basically around here for the pullback. Okay. And then obviously, if we do hold that high low, then we can obviously expect, boom, we fly. We fly to, at the very least, maybe retest that trend line that I drew, which might be around previous highs at around $10, $11, maybe even around August, September time. So we shall see. We shall see. Yeah. Anyway, that's all I have time for. Thank you very much for joining. And I will obviously speak to you guys next week. If you have any questions, you guys know that you can message me and give me a shout. And yeah, I'm in the chat like all the time. Like I basically sleep with my phone. So, so if you guys have any questions, just ping me. And I do try to respond. Are we gonna see a bloody weekend? I don't know. We're gonna have to see. We're gonna have to see what happens at this level, right? Sharky is like crying for a dump. I know we're all crying for a dump. That sounds really wrong, but yeah, like let's just let's just see how the weekend goes. All right, guys. All right, thanks for joining the stream, and peace out.